This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you. Um, Hello and welcome to the Clean Call for Tuesday, October 1st, 2019. I'm Katie Boyd. I'm going to facilitate today. We have a great speaker talking about Earth Day today. But before we get to that, I wanted to open it up for any announcements. And I'm actually going to start the announcements really quick before I open it up to others, that we are starting our Clean webinar series next week. This is our normal webinar series, but we do have a new webinar that we're going to be highlighting the Understanding Global Change framework. Jessica Bean's going to do a webinar for us talking about how to use clean resources to teach their Understanding Global Change framework. So I put the link to our webinar page in the chat here, and I've also sent it out to the Clean List serve. And if you could please share that out widely, I would greatly appreciate it. I was out last week, so I'm a little behind on getting this advertised. We do start next week with the introduction, but it goes for 5 weeks. We have one per week all the way through the first week of November. So if you could help me share, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. And then does anyone else have any announcements I'd like to make? I see Frank's been putting in the chat. Frank, do you have oh, it looks like more professional development.
Exactly. I thank you, Katie. I also just want to highlight for tonight, ACE is having their teacher webinar at 7 p.m. Eastern on Our Climate, Our Future. So that's just one. And then I've been updating the teacher professional development section of climate.gov with all the other related resources. There's one really interesting one on sea level rise, a new curriculum coming out of a team in Georgia, and they have 4 lunchtime webinars. So just, if you might want to check those out. And Katie, right after this call, I'll be adding the clean ones to that resource as well.
Thank you, Frank. That would be awesome. I was just going to ask you to do that. Wonderful.
Yep.
Are there any other announcements?
Sure, Jim Callahan. So moving this up with Earth Day on things, this is something that was going on anyway, so this is great, this phone call coming in today. And in coordinating Earth Day events is something that we have taken part in for 20 years now, and we've taken quite several. But what we're linking it up is with the Science Festival Alliance, who are doing in the Bay Area now. Our Bay Area Science Festival is coming up, the one with 30,000 and so on. But trying to get the Science Festival Alliance and science festivals to recognize Earth Days themselves as a way, one is it's a way to promote the science festivals from their own point of view, but also in many parts of the country where there's 78 different science festivals, some of them are in April. They're right around Earth Day, and it makes sense to kind of put them together or have them work with each other. They're both drawing audiences. One can help the other. They can be the same and so on. I mean, in Washington, D.C., there's 300,000 people who come to the U.S. Science and Engineering Festival or event. That doesn't currently, as far as I know, have much going on with climate change, especially something that's hands-on, the kind of things they're looking for. That can change with the help of a lot of people, and Earth Day Network might want to take part in it. In the very least, folks are welcome to take part in our events here in the Bay Area. But anyway, there's just that kind of a link. Another one is NSTA is going to have a webinar on STEM out of school. So the idea of getting the message out that teachers don't have to do it all themselves inside of school. There's all these different programs. Is that something that would be interesting? Should I send that out to the Clean Network of other people want to take a part of that? I don't know if the NSTA was planning to announce it through the Clean Network on their own. That's coming up on October 9th.
Yeah, they have their own email list, so I doubt that they would post it themselves through Clean. So it'd probably be useful if you wanted to send it to Climate Literacy email list. I think, yeah, why not?
Yeah, and I mean, part of the thing is there is the general thing of informal education. There's a general thing of ways in which they help the K-12s, but someone's got to go in and say, but what about climate literacy? What about climate science? What about energy? Let's make sure that's a component. And people are usually very receptive. It's just that sometimes the connection doesn't get made. So I shall send that out.
Great, thanks, Jim. Anybody else have any announcements? for the group? Great. Well, I think then we'll go ahead and get started here.
Katie, sorry, this is Frank
Go
again.
ahead, Frank, yeah.
It took me a little while to get off mute. So, you know, for those of us, there will be some of us in the community at NAAEE coming up, and then also again at Drawdown Learn. So the two events that are coming up most soon that I know of. So, you know, I guess we will probably convene some events, you know, where the Clean Network usually just come to meet each other at these events. So just look forward to some emails about how and where to get engaged in both of those events. Just a good reminder.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, that's actually a really great reminder. I should have remembered those are coming up so fast. I also just realized I wanted to make one more announcement. I was at GSA, the Geological Society of America meeting last week, and I gave a general talk about climate education in one of their large party sessions, which was live streamed, so they ended up recording it. If you're interested, the whole session's like, you know, 3 or 4 hours long. But if you're interested in my talk, this is the link. It's the whole session, but mine starts at 2:41, and I'll put that in the chat here too. So if you're interested in looking at a 20-minute talk about climate education, feel free to check it out there. Any other announcements from folks who may be trying to get off mute? We'll wait a second. All right, sounds like not. So I'm going to go ahead and get us transitioned to our speaker for today. I'm really excited. We have Tracy Ritchie here, and she's going to talk to us about Earth Day 2020. She has a PhD from the University of Florida in environmental and climate education. She's currently the director of education for Earth Day Network, where she focuses on developing resources and partnerships for Earth Day 2020, which is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. She has been in the field of environmental education for over 14 years, working on program development and evaluation, as well as educator professional development. And with that, we'll let Tracy tell us about their Earth Day 2020 activities. Take it away, Tracy.
Great, thank you so much, Katie. Is my audio okay?
Yes.
Yep,
Wonderful.
we can hear you. Thanks.
All right, thank you, everybody. So excited to be on this call today with you all. Excited to see some familiar names, and I will also be in attendance at NAAEE in Lexington. So we'll have a presentation on teach-ins, and we'll be very excited to see all of my environmental education family there. So would love to meet up with Clean Network as well. So as we're going to talk about today, and it seems like there's a slight delay on slides. Here we go. Just want to do a really brief overview of Earth Day, kind of past, present, and future, what we've been up to and what we have in store for the 50th anniversary next year. But then also would just love a discussion. I know, thank you, Jim, for reaching out prior to this. I anticipate that many of you already acknowledge, celebrate, and coordinate events for Earth Day every year, and we're so thankful for that. And we really want to see just how we can work better together for Earth Day 2020 and really push the needle forward on some major climate initiatives. So I'd like to leave some time at the end to kind of talk that through together and brainstorm and help answer any questions about the information I'm going to share with you today. So again, just a really brief introduction. Thank you, Katie, for that introduction. I've been with Earth Day Network for about a little over a year and a half now. I started in January 2018, so have 2 Earth Days underneath my belt, but I'm most excited about this upcoming one. I do have degrees from University of Florida in wildlife ecology, and then went back for my PhD in climate change education, which actually we have, I was part of the development team for the Pine Map module, which some of you might be familiar with through Project Learning Tree. It was the Southeastern Forests and Climate Change module, secondary module through Project Learning Tree. And I know some of those activities have lived on the Clean Network for quite some time. So it's kind of exciting to just be full circle and come back to this amazing network of educators. So environmental education is my home, but definitely have been focusing on climate education for quite some time, and have just been in this realm. So again, I love how small and tight-knit our family is, and excited to see a lot of familiar names here today. So I think this is a little bit of a spoiler alert with our new logo that we have featured here. But as many of you have guessed, that are also just very good at math, the first Earth Day took place in 1970. So it was an idea that first came from Senator Nelson from Wisconsin, who was really taking note of a lot of the very visible environmental issues that we were having in the late 60s, from the Santa Barbara oil spill to the Cuyahoga River on fire to the smog in urban areas. A lot of our environmental issues were just quite visible and quite daunting and in your face, could not avoid them. And he was really inspired by the activism happening around the late 60s with the anti-war movement and the civil rights movement. And he wanted to harness that energy, especially with college students, to take action on the environment. So he hired Dennis Hayes, among other college-aged organizers, to bring together this idea for an environmental teach-in. And he wanted to focus on college campuses and have people come out to the streets in a lot of major cities across the United States. And he had quite amazing success in that. He wanted to not only bring people to the streets, but he coordinated what he called an environmental teach-in. And I hope with this audience that the phrase teach-in is somewhat familiar, though I can tell you in my partnership development in the past couple months, it's not a very common phrase that's been utilized over the years. But the teach-in was really this idea of, it's a conversation, it's a dialogue. It's not just a presentation and a speaking at a crowd. It's really a two-way conversation of community leaders and content experts are absolutely a part of the formula, and they're there sharing information. But the audience and the community members are equally as important, if not more important, at the table of their experiences, their feelings, their concerns, and their ideas for calls to action. And so that was the biggest piece of the environmental teach-in, is that they leave the conversation knowing next steps. They know what's going to happen. They have a strategic plan of how they're going to take action to address the issue that they had been discussing. So spoiler alert. So the first Earth Day turned out 20 million Americans across the country, mainly through the organization of Dennis Hayes and his collaborators to get the word out. So remember, pre-social media, pre-internet, he was on the phone, he was sending mail, and really catalyzed this generation to stand up and protect the environment. And so it evolved over the next 20 years, and 1990 was really the first year that Earth Day officially went global, having over from 20 million in 1970 to 200 million in 1990, and focusing events in over 140 countries around the world. So it really grew. It had been growing steadily over the 20 years, but really had a huge push in 1990 to be a globally recognized effort. There was a major focus on recycling, especially here in the United States. So I'm sure many of you remember those wonderful PSAs and evening specials on ABC with Robin Williams and Billy Crystal, and kind of the importance of recycling. And just had a major event happen from there. And Dennis always loves, as we show photos from him evolving over the years. So that's still Dennis down there in the bottom right corner. Earth Day today is, again, still growing exponentially every year. Through our research, we have found over 190 countries acknowledge Earth Day in some way, shape, or form on and around April 22nd. We anticipate that about 1 billion people participate already in Earth Day, and that is not all just through Earth Day Network, though we are the global coordinator for Earth Day and the theme every year. This presence only happens through a major network of partners around the world, and on-the-ground educators, scientists, and organizers that make these events possible. Just a smattering of evidence here of some of our work. especially I think we had a huge push in 2017 where we were the coordinator for March for Science that actually happened on Earth Day in 2017 for that first March for Science, which grew to be such a huge movement. They are now their own organization, but working to mobilize people on and around Earth Day all across the world is our goal. And so for the past couple of years, we've had more content-specific themes. You might recognize 2018, we focused on single-use plastics, and our theme was End Plastic Pollution, and really trying to find avenues and easy asks for individuals, organizations, corporations of how can we address plastic pollution in a variety of settings, not just, we didn't want to just focus on a marine environment. We really wanted to focus on all aspects of plastic pollution. And there was just a lot of really simple asks that weren't heavy lifts for people to, refuse a straw or bring reusable bags to the store or bring their own to-go containers for leftovers at the restaurant. Just lots of ways that we could think about just how pervasive plastic pollution is and what we can do to address that. So a wildly successful campaign that came together with a lot of amazing partners like Plastic Pollution Coalition to make this, really push this topic across 2018 and especially help with some policy initiatives for banning plastics, single-use plastics. In 2019, we've been focusing on biodiversity, and our theme is Protect Our Species. So it's important to point out that these themes go across our calendar year. They're not just for Earth Day, Earth Month, or even January to April. They are all across the calendar year. So we are still working on protecting our species. And honestly, we're still focusing on plastic pollution as well. Unfortunately, we did not solve that crisis by December 31st. So it is something that's been incorporated into our Protect Our Species theme as well.
I'm hearing, sorry, Tracy, just really quick. I'm just hearing a little bit of noise or feedback in the background. Those of you, can you just try to mute yourselves so that we can hear Tracy? Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Yes. So for this theme for 2019, I have to admit it was a more difficult campaign. It was a more difficult ask for people. How we interact with species and species protection and biodiversity is a little more indirect than our daily plastic use. So we really wanted to focus here on that care ethic and understanding the importance of biodiversity and how we're experiencing some mass extinctions, understanding the importance of everything from pollinators and insects to African and Asian elephants, understanding that our habitats in our backyard and our ecosystems that we live within, no matter where we live, are beautiful and special and unique, and we need to understand our local ecosystems to know best how to be a good steward and to operate successfully as a smart and healthy citizen within our ecosystems. So we wanted to showcase, certain species and certain, focus on the charismatic megafauna of the world that are in need of our help, but also really bring home understanding our local ecosystems, what makes, our backyards in Kansas just as special and unique than other parts of the world. So really kind of focusing on that biodiversity aspect at the local and global level. So historically, we've provided a series of resources. All of these can still be found on our website. For education, especially, we have what we call Climate Education Week, and we have toolkits. So these are typically long PDFs that you can download. Everything's completely for free, and you can link to resources, activities, student leaders, STEM careers, project ideas, classroom trainings for teachers, just kind of has a whole slew of resources. And we have resources for educators, which is most topical for this crowd, but we have resources for mayors and local elected officials, for faith institutions, for higher education schools. And again, we do work globally, so all of these resources span the globe as far as their accessibility. We've been working on translations in certain cases, but that's something we're very much focusing on 2020, and I'll get to that as well. Billion Acts of Green is something that I'd love to address on your lower left corner. It's a program we've had since, I think it was 2011 it kicked off, and it's a place to showcase your individual acts of everything you do, from picking up litter on the way to work, or taking a shorter shower, or hosting a community event or a school assembly, or teaching environmental education with your family and your students. So it could really, an active green can manifest in any way that is something that you think is doing helping the planet and doing good for the environment. So you can tell us about your active green, we quantify it. We're up to over 2.6 billion acts of green at this point, and looking to hit at least 3, if not 3.5 for 2020. And so I'll talk more about that as we get into 2020 resources. And so that's really the point of this call. So I want to spend most of our time today talking about our 50th anniversary, this just monumental opportunity to utilize Earth Day 2020 as a talking point, a leverage point, an opportunity, a tipping point. However you want to utilize the 50th anniversary, we're here to help you do so. So working again on a global initiative for some mass mobilization and focusing on, we haven't pinned down our tagline quite yet, but our main focus, theme, and drive for 2020 will be climate. Climate movement, climate action, climate activation, climate education, all things climate. So we've been working off this one acronym from the very beginning of SAVE, S-A-V-E, for some of the 4 major campaigns we're leading. So the S is for science, and that is going to be a citizen science initiative called Earth Challenge 2020. So we're working with the State Department and the Wilson Center to work together on compiling what we hope to be the world's largest citizen science portal. We in no way want to ignore or discount all the just absolutely incredible citizen science tools and initiatives that already exist. We kind of hope to just bring them together. So we want to have people have free access to this data, to interact with it in one spot, and to really understand global data, be able to see global data. How does your local data compare to global data? If we understand, insect populations and air quality and water quality, how can we put that together as kind of a holistic view of our ecosystem and what's going on? We really want the data point submission to be the first point of entry for our audiences. And again, this is meant to be a global effort. There'll be multiple languages. It'll be accessible on Android and iPhone in what we're trying to have every market across the world. So while some apps may not be available in the App Store in certain countries, we're working especially with the State Department's help to make sure that this is globally accessible. So the citizen science, again, will have a place to submit citizen science data on 6 specific research questions that were actually globally sourced. We put out a call for research questions of, if you were to participate in the citizen science, what would you want to know about your local environment? What kind of data would you like to see about global environmental air quality or environmental quality? So the 6 research questions that rose to the surface, not surprisingly, were the extent of plastic pollution, water quality, air quality, local impacts of climate change, insect biodiversity, and food sustainability. And so I'll share some resources at the end too, so you don't have to take notes, but all of this is linked to our website. But we'll be collecting data on those 6 topics, and we're working, the app is in development right now for a launch of April 1st to start collecting data. So we'll have those initiatives. There'll basically be 6 individual widgets within the app where you can collect different data and submit it. The app will also be far more sophisticated than I am ever able to explain eloquently, but we'll have pop-ups for actions and policies and things that you can do in your community to address the data that you're collecting, of if you're finding poor air quality or water quality or just a wealth of plastic pollution. There will be pop-ups that come along of if there's a petition in your area to address plastic pollution or ban it, or implement a ban or restriction on certain pesticides when you're finding low insect biodiversity. There'll be pop-ups to go along with all of those for action steps that you can take, as well as lesson plans and activities that will coincide with these topics for the data collection that could be utilized as pre-activities, post-activities, simultaneous activities, any time of the year activities, just some more interactive ways to address these topics with your students, both in the classroom and out of the classroom as well. So that will all live within the app and on our website. The A for action is kind of acknowledging all of the great Earth Day events that happen around the world already. We also sometimes say activism when we talk about the A. I work primarily with a K-12 audience or 6 to 18-year-old audiences, and so I often say amplify to not scare superintendents or principals with an action or activism word. But this is really to kind of talk about all the great Earth Day events that are already happening, whether that's a school assembly, a teacher research project, a capstone course for a university class, a teach-in that happens, whatever this is. We just want some more coordination. Again, knowing how many events happen across the world, or even the District of Columbia is a great example. We have hundreds of events that happen on and around Earth Day within the span of 7 days, and none of them are talking to each other. So how do we work with a community level model from your, whatever the formula is for your community? If it's your mayor, your church, and the zoo, that's fantastic. Let's work in conjunction with each other so we have a community level event. Whether it's your library, your superintendent of your school board, and the nature center, the museum, whatever that formula is, we just want to help you organize on a community level. So the Earth Day Network staff is working in all these different departments, from local elected officials to faith leaders to NGOs and environmental institutions and education, both K-12 and higher ed, trying to find all those people to make commitments that then they will then work together on the community level. There will also be a huge event on the National Mall here in DC. So for anyone in the local area, we'd love for you to attend. That will happen the Saturday after Earth Day, so April 25th. And we'll be in conjunction with our partner, the Smithsonian, who's hosting their Earth Optimism Summit Thursday through Saturday morning, and then we'll have our mall event Saturday afternoon into the evening. So if you're local, please come out. It'll definitely be a huge, huge event. The V for volunteerism is called our Great Global Cleanup, and this is just the quintessential Earth Day event of the cleanup that happened all around the world. We were very lucky to partner with International Cleanup Day, Coastal Cleanup Day, National Cleanup Day, all the big cleanup days that just happened prior September 20th or 21st, I guess is that Saturday, that all those events happened. And then also on National Public Lands Day this past Saturday was really special to see all these amazing cleanup events and communities coming together, and hope to have as big of a force, if not bigger, across April in 2020 for cleanups. Again, we want everything to be 1-2 steps further of as you're participating in cleanups, we want to be collecting data for the citizen science portal in the plastic pollution arena, and really thinking while we're in the cleanups, identifying the sources of the litter. There's really nothing more infuriating or defeating, especially for young students, to work very hard for a whole day or a half a day and clean up an area and make it look beautiful and restore its natural beauty, and then to drive by a week or two later and look like you were never there. So how can we stop these band-aid fixes of temporary cleanups and really identify the source of the litter, whether it's curbside littering or coming from a water source downstream, or there's a park nearby that doesn't have any trash receptacles. How do we identify the source of where this litter is coming from so we can address that and stop it from coming back? And then the favorite part, saving the best for last, is E for education. My favorite is we're bringing back the teach-in. So as I was talking about with the first Earth Day in 1970 being an environmental teach-in under Senator Nelson's leadership, we really want to bring back the teach-in in a major way. And we've had teach-in resources and materials for the past many years, if not decades, but they haven't been as utilized, I would say, as far as other resources for Earth Day and opportunities to engage with us. So we want to, it's 50 years old, the teach-in needs a facelift, so we're going to make it more accessible, more exciting, have teach-ins in virtual spaces. I was actually really pleased to see, especially with the climate strikes, I feel like teach-ins maybe are making a comeback. I know Ace, who's doing the presentation tonight, always does really great resources on teach-ins on and around Earth Day. There's been several universities that are really focusing on teach-ins again. And I think when you think about the teach-in model, many of us have participated in a teach-in in some way or another. We just may not have called that. And so we want to just get that vernacular back in everyone's vocabulary of this is what we call an organized community coming together to talk about an issue and take action on it. Again, just so there's some cohesion and collaboration across the world of we're all doing this together to make a difference. So we're going to have teach-in resources. I'm aligning it to the 6 research questions for Earth Challenge. So we'll have what we're calling teach-in grab bags that are really just simple one-pagers of we don't want to go into a full toolkit, that we do have those resources of what is a teach-in, how do you host a teach-in, what's the logistics, what's an agenda, who are the speakers, what's a press release, all those different pieces of coordinating a teach-in. But we find that if we just say host a teach-in, people need a little bit more handholding in what exactly that looks like if we're talking about certain topics. So we're providing these grab bags to give sample speakers, sample calls to action, to just kind of whet the appetite and get people thinking, get their wheels turning. We in no way want to dictate or prescribe any topic or calls to action or how a community talks about an issue for a teach-in. We really need this to be self-selected, community-led, community-driven, and so there's that passion and motivation and commitment to the topic. They choose a topic that is important to them, is most relevant to them, is most timely for them, and they work on that together. And again, a community can I self-identify in any way? Again, with virtual space, it doesn't have to be a geographic location. It doesn't need to be held in a specific spot of just a school or just a faith institution. It can be however a community identifies. And we just want them together, bringing in the teach-in model. So if that wasn't enough, we do have several other opportunities, resources, campaigns that we're working on depending on your interest and your learners and how you want to work with us. One big one that will be happening mostly through higher education institutions and communities around the world is our campaign called Vote Earth. So working with some community partners and NGO groups that work on voter registration and voter education to make sure that the environment is a priority issue in every election around the world at every level, from your local school district elections to your national elections. The environment must be a priority issue. We need young and first-time voters registered and aware and in having a positive feeling about going to the polls and actually voting, not just being registered, but also getting them ready to ask questions of their candidates and understand the environmental issues that we face, and making sure that our candidates know that if they want our vote, they need to talk about the environment and their plans to protect it. Another huge campaign that's getting so much traction and I think would really resonate with a lot of people on this call is our Food Prints for the Future campaign, which is connecting our food and diet choices to climate. So we call it food prints because it's not just understanding our carbon footprint of our food choices, but also our land footprint, our water footprint, all the complex pieces of the food system, and understanding how the foods we choose impact that system. It is a very positive campaign. It is a very come to you where you're at campaign. It does talk about plant-based, increasing your plant-based choices. It is in no way a go vegan tomorrow campaign. It's really just understanding the food system and how your choices impact the climate system and how we can make different choices to lessen our impact. So we've got tons of resources. Again, this one is a national campaign and mainly focused on higher education institutions, but we have youth ambassadors, we have coalition members, everyone from animal welfare to environmental justice to social justice to food security to environmental science. All these coalition members coming together to raise this issue. Mobilize You, again, I've said several times, is our higher education campaign. So joining us as a green campus, as a faculty ambassador, as a student or a faculty liaison or a student ambassador, just different ways to kind of pay tribute to Earth Day 1970 and really mobilize college campuses for Earth Day. I think one of the things that I learned that was most interesting while researching Earth Day 1970 is that Senator Nelson and the organizers selected Wednesday for the first Earth Day in 1970 because it had the highest class attendance rate than any other day of the week. And it just so happens that Earth Day 2020 falls on a Wednesday. So we do want some major action happening around the Wednesday, April 22nd itself. I anticipate a lot of things will happen on the weekends on either side of Earth Day, again, with our mall event being on the 25th. But the biggest point I want to drive home around all of these resources is that they are in no way restricted to Earth Day, Earth Week, or Earth Month, especially with formal education in the United States, in India, and other countries around the world. April is kind of a nightmare. It's a lot of formalized testing, a lot of restrictions. There's other holidays. University campuses are pretty much done by Earth Day. I have interns who are always managing finals around Earth Day. So if it doesn't make sense and it's not conducive to your schedule to do something that day or that week, no problem, absolutely no problem. We want these events to be spanning across 2020. We want to address the climate crisis now. We're going to have resources available no later than December on our website. We have some resources now. A lot of things will launch January 1, but these things, it's not meant to stay on just April. If it's March, if it's November, whatever makes most sense to you. And hopefully it's also not just a one-off thing. We don't want to just check the Earth Day box of, yep, I said something about the environment and I wore green that day and yay. It's really meant to be a movement. It's meant to change the narrative, change our conversations, change our curriculum, and really bring attention to these issues so our students are environmentally and climate literate by the end of 2020, and they see the path forward and they see the hope in what we can do. And then the last program I'll talk about very briefly, just because it's still in progression, but Artists for the Earth is just another way for students and adults to engage with the environment, environmental science in different ways, from symphonies and orchestras that have environmentally inspired pieces to documentary films and photography. We're working on a journalism contest as well with some partners where students can write or make podcasts or do videos about the environment, making sure that student journals and publications cover the environment in a more serious way, in a more frequent way across 2020, and just having other ways that isn't just, we have been talking to NSTA and I think there's some positive movement there, but this is not just a science issue. I don't want just science teachers talking about this. It needs to be that inherently beautifully interdisciplinary nature of the environment needs to be covered in all the disciplines. So Artists for the Earth is just one great way to do that. So again, some of the resources I've reviewed, we're going to have lesson plans, might be a strong word. I think activities is what I've been using to describe the Earth Challenge resources. So we'll have 3 activities for each research question. So a total of 18 activities in varying levels. I didn't want to dictate that it's, K through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12. There's a basic, intermediate, and advanced activity. Students and teachers can self-identify with their comfort level of the topic and just have new activities and ways to engage with those Earth Challenge citizen science research topics. The teach and grab bags, so will be one for each of the Earth Challenge research questions. We will still have Climate Education Week and are working on what that looks like. It just won't be the one toolkit we've had. It'll kind of be all these resources and opportunities to talk about climate education across the Sunday to Saturday with Earth Day being in the middle. We're working with US governors to see if we can proclaim Environmental Education Day as an official day for each state. We've had some positive response from Italy and Mexico about acknowledging this day as well. So looking for some more international response of what Environmental Education Day and Earth Day looks like for different global audiences and how we what's the ask. So Earth Day 2020, April 22nd, will be a mass day of action, but I foresee that action manifesting in several ways to be culturally and regionally appropriate. We'll still have toolkits, we'll still have resources. We're just trying to shy away from the one solid PDF model that you have to download. We want it more bite-sized, action-packed, clickable resources that you can scroll through at your, based on your interest and not have to go through one giant PDF. We are again, just because, we'd like to pile it on at these points, we are currently doing a website overhaul with a planned launch of December 10th. So in the process right now, and trying to make sure that we have a brand new website that really shows all these resources and connects everyone. And a part of that will be event registration. So we're hoping that it'll manifest in a map where you can see color-coded, here's a cleanup, here's a teach-in, here's a citizen science program, here's a festival or a rally or a march or a strike. But we can kind of color-code these events, post them to our website so people can see them if they're looking to attend something, or also they can be closed events just to display the breadth of what's happening across Earth Day. And as these resources become available, since the PDF is posted on the CLEAN website, our Educator Network News Bites is our newsletter just for educators, just on these resources and topics, and host stories and examples and models of other educators around the world doing special, innovative, creative things with their students. So the Educator Network newsletter is where you can learn about all the resources as they're released and launched, but also a place to see just really fun, innovative, creative ways that we're talking about the environment in classes and non-formal settings around the world, as a source of inspiration, as a source of creativity, as a source of troubleshooting things. We want to provide those stories. I really don't want to bog down your email box with another newsletter of the same old stuff. I really want these pieces to be inspirational, creative stories. So that is on our newsletter. And just to wrap up and kind of talk about the climate strikes that have been happening, Earth Day Network has been really supportive of this movement from the very beginning, especially Alexandra Villaseñor. We've been working with her for many months now, and she leads the climate strikes outside of the UN in New York City. And we hosted the flyer you're seeing is an event we hosted on Twitter here in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago now, which is still, it was recorded live. It was a panel of these 8 climate leaders from across the country and across different sectors. I think Alexandra is the youngest at 14, 15, and I think Vic is maybe the oldest at 20, 21. Each of them are CEOs of their own organizations, but just how, though they have different priorities and different strategies, this is a community of collaboration and working together on these climate strikes and this youth movement. And we want to be very supportive of that. In addition, I also want teachers, educators, students, principals, with Monday to Friday events, climate education, civic education, environmental education, happening in the classrooms for those who can't strike, aren't able to strike, but making sure, this is a topic not just on Friday, it's Monday through Thursday as well. It's the weekends as well. So acknowledging the climate strikes, being a part of that, being very supportive of that. I think the point that Jamie and Alexandria were talking about is they still have several years before they can vote, and what they need from us as adult allies are, taking action and being educated voters, and speaking up with them. And it's just been really inspiring to see that, and participating in the climate strikes happening on September 20th and all around the world. And we do anticipate to be a major strike the Friday of Climate or Earth Week, and potentially some major events on the Wednesday itself of Earth Day. So just kind of acknowledging these groups, but also making sure that for those who can't strike or aren't able to strike, that they've got resources all week long and all year round. So again, just to wrap up, it's not a day, it's a movement. The ever so cheesy Earth Day is every day is very, very true for us. We want these resources to be beneficial to you whenever it best fits with your learners to implement them. And we hope that, they're also customizable and flexible to suit your audiences. I know I can't create an activity that's going to work for every student around the world, but we can create resources and opportunities and connect to more resources like CLEAN and the vast resources that exist there. Excuse me, to let, ensure educators have access to resources that are vetted, that are high quality, and that we're sharing these resources to implement at any point in the year that makes sense for their curriculum. So thank you so much for your time. I know I rambled on a lot. I tend to do that. I apologize, but we have so much going on kind of every environmental topic under the sun across the world. So I want to make sure that I shared all of our opportunities to engage with us, draw attention and success to all the events that you're already doing around the country and around the world, all the work that you're already, putting your heart and soul into making sure we have environmentally literate and climate literate students moving forward. We just want to help lighten that lift for you. So whatever resources we can share, develop, get you signed on as an Earth Day school, or get you committed to doing something so you can challenge your other educators to do something on and around Earth Day. However, utilizing the 50th anniversary draws attention to your programs you're already doing. We're just looking for helping to raise your voice and elevate all the great work that you already do. So here's all the different ways you can get in touch with us, share your stories, connect to us on social media, connect to our website, send me an email. I'm happy to work with all of you.
Ah, great. So exciting. Thank you, Tracy. I'm really looking forward to a lot of this happening. So yeah, does anybody have any questions for Tracy?
So Tracy, nice to be, whoops, hold on.
Hi, yep, I hear you, Frank.
So, sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we can hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I had both devices on, so that was me. Tracy, nice to be talking with you again.
Yes.
One thing I would imagine, given who's on the call today, is just a small fraction of the Clean Network, and we've always been present with inside this community. There are sizable programs that the Clean Collection and the Clean Portal don't really currently do adequate justice to. So, like Jen Kretzer's and her team's work on youth climate summits, and they're rebuilding a toolkit for those, or the Alliance for Climate Education's webinar, Our Climate, Our Future. They're like these big things, bigger than what the Clean Collection has. And we've just, we've always known that we don't know how to really promote those yet. We're working on it, but it's not there together. So what I'm wondering is, with the teach-in and the Climate Education Week, that how would we as a community partner, explore, properly, provide resources with Earth Day? I think that would be really helpful, just kind of like navigate that space and maybe co-create some of that richness, because it's a lot. And I would feel for you to try and navigate our landscape without us showing the way, if you will.
Absolutely. Thank you, Frank. So what I would say,
oh, we're getting feedback. If there, especially this, that's usually the issue. Okay, seems like it's fixed. Sorry.
Thanks, Katie. So yes, Frank, all the things. And I know that I'm starting to, as we get closer to Earth Day 2020, fall behind of all the great, amazing opportunities and connections that exist. So I want to make sure that we are talking to everyone who is already doing stuff and connecting to our resources. We do have the opportunity, because I in no way want to recreate the Clean Network, just wealth of resources that already exist, that you've already vetted, you already know are high quality. And so I would love to share that on the teach-in page, and we can share it out through the Educator Network newsletter to make sure people are aware of these resources, and we can send them to that. We're also looking for basically teach-in ambassadors and teach-in hosts around the world and around the country. So one opportunity we're talking to, I can't remember if I've told you about this one yet, but working with the EPA Alumni Association of, really intelligent environmental professionals that can have influence in their community, can help organize around a certain topic, and can serve as hosts for a teach-in on a certain topic of, maybe they're from the RTP EPA in North Carolina and their background was air quality, and they can host the Raleigh regional air quality teach-in. So as we have those more partner level people who are willing to be hosts and volunteers to coordinate these teach-ins, as they need supplemental resources and background information, sending them to the Clean Network to get any other additional resources, excuse me, that are more geared towards different audiences, younger audiences. How do we talk about these different topics, and making sure everyone has enough resources to feel comfortable with these hosting the teach-ins around certain topics. So I'd love to cross-promote as much as we can. We are also just looking for major partners. So I'd love for Clean Network to be a partner with us, and we share your logo and put you on our website. And if there's individual organizations and networks on the call, and I know it's a network of networks, working with all of you to kind of cross-promote, cross-pollinate, and share out resources where we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Tracy,
definitely. And I think, just sorry, from the clean perspective side, I literally just emailed our social media student to be like, make sure you follow this group and reshare their things and stuff. So yeah, we definitely love to partner with you and help to mutual marketing. Clean's all about that. But there, as Frank said, there's a lot of groups within Clean that would be great to partner with on this as well. So sending out announcements through the Clean Network email list, because not everybody can join the calls every week and stuff like that, with some of the things you're doing over the next few months, is a great idea.
Yeah, and we want to draw attention again to all the work that's already happening. So acknowledging and connecting you to your community partners, to kind of just have a bigger bang on and around Earth Day for 2020.
Awesome. Other questions? Frank, it sounded, Frank Granja, I think, was maybe trying to say something there. Is that who chimed in?
Jim Bray.
Tracy,
Jim
Bray.
Great
Sorry.
job. I was really, really happy with the renewed enthusiasm that you bring to this endeavor. And I'm particularly excited about support and resources for teach-ins. It's somewhat daunting, but 50 years ago, I created a week-long teach-in centered around the very first Earth Day.
Great.
And it was very successful on my campus. And I've always thought that was really a very good way to get others involved and to actually, do some dialogue. So great work. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we've really been inspired. Dennis Hayes still works very closely with us. He's our board chair emeritus. And there's been things where we kind of want to pay homage to the first Earth Day and acknowledge all the great work. And he's been so adamant that we don't look back, we look forward. But I think there's just so many great lessons learned of, the first Earth Day, it worked. It brought attention, it raised the bar, it established the EPA. So while we are very much focused on looking forward, I think we just have so much to learn from those original models, those original initiatives, and just, rebrand them for 2019 and 2020 to make them fit today's audiences.
Tracy, Jim Callahan, Mobile Climate Science Labs. So questions that focus on the aspect of the Earth Days of the community events, or the event, the events that are getting together where people get together with booths and education and so on, not in competition with, but a little bit in contrast to, say, the volunteer cleanup events, right? Certainly in California, Earth Day divides in those two different types of events. Getting a sense of what do we see in terms of support, in terms of resources, so that we can have our sights up high, that we're aiming at things, but we're also being realistic. We can see where we're going. What do we see happening with the Earth Day events, in the sense that, okay, so there's the National Mall, and I think there would be a thing of any of us who can to help that event happen. Then there would be, if we take events around the country, and I'm just going to use an example, the Bay Area. There's perhaps around 12 sizable, usually city-oriented events that happen in the Bay Area. We could look at, if taking that as an example, you got to apply anywhere else. We could look at that we're trying to create new Earth Day events that haven't ever happened before. That's theoretically a possibility, but I think most of us would know that's probably not a good idea. It's a matter of making the existing ones that have happened for years and years and years better and bigger and more prominent and more news coverage and so on. So if we take those two together, or take other examples together, what is our sights on? What can we say to people that's realistic about what will happen different this year than what happened last year?
Great question. Yeah, and that's really something that we want to work on, is helping everyone with that kind of community-based model to amplify in the A of SAVE. I don't want events to change or to not happen because they're combining. I just want them to get bigger and louder. So what we're trying to do is, with our new website, provide that opportunity for everyone to register their events, help support, especially I think our capacity and our bandwidth is really going to focus on US major cities or regions like the Bay Area, where we can help coordinate and put together planning committees that everyone is talking on the front end. So it's not these one-off individual events of, if there's, you know, cleanups happening, they're in conjunction with a teach-in. And, you know, there's a bit of a chicken and an egg situation of, perhaps it is a cleanup event that then leads to a teach-in to talk about the issue of the litter that we found, to address it. Or perhaps it's a community teach-in, which then one of the calls to action is a cleanup, because they decide that the major issue is litter or plastic pollution. And then they're collecting citizen science data and submitting it to Earth Challenge once they get the plastic pollution data. So we just want to help kind of put the wheels in motion, that these events are talking to each other, they're in conjunction. I think the biggest word we want to avoid is competition for Earth Day 2020, that these events are leading to each other, referring to each other, bringing people from one to the other, and just helping out with some consistent messaging and resources that, you know, we're all talking about the environmental issues in the same way. So we're not getting conflicting messaging or confusing misconceptions. We're working together on community priorities together. And again, if we can work in conjunction and spread those events out, so it's not just, you know, one major blast in one weekend in April and you have to pick and choose what you like better. But if we can work to all do these events in parallel or in succession with each other, we want our network part of our name to help you with that. So especially on the national level, we can work with our Green Cities coordinator, our national campaign director, our Vote Earth director, our Mobilize You director, to kind of make sure all the pieces are talking in different communities and different cities around the world. I absolutely don't want everyone coming to the mall event. I want people to be acknowledging this in their local communities and celebrating how they usually do, and just us helping them amplify, which is probably a very vague answer to your question, so I apologize for that. But I guess getting in touch with us and letting us know where there's already great events happening and how we can help connect you to the networks that we've already established in major cities across the country.
Okay, great. And a kind of a follow-up that leads to that is, and there's two folks on the call from at least two of the organizations that already take part in this, NOAA and Abby from American Meteorological Society. On the 25th and the 26th is the beginning of the USA Science and Engineering Festival. How do we work that? Hopefully that could have an Earth Day component, or because that could be a major competition with the mall event in a way that hopefully we can work to make that not happen. I mean, again, 300,000 people at the convention center. I don't think it's on the mall this year, but
okay.
You know, and again, NOAA has some say. I mean, I believe NOAA is part of it, and Abby, you mentioned that AMS tends to have a booth or something at that. So there's a little bit of a way to talk to them, right? You know, science and engineering. Come on, guys. They're not like backward people who don't get climate change. They can get that. That's what, you know. They can speak with, like, geez, you're not going to have an Earth Day component. Maybe you know, have that part of it at the mall. You know, I don't know. You know, some thoughtful way of not, because that could be a major. You got all these people going to one, and how do they go to the other, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A huge opportunity. I would love to talk about connections and opportunities for that event, or both events, yes.
Right, and like our team is going to have to decide. We were planning to go to the U.S. to the engineering festival. Well, our first love is Earth Day, right? So how are we going to handle that, you know? So.
Just a minute left here. Does anyone else have a final question for Tracy?
I see Abby has one in the chat. Can Abby ask?
Yeah. Hi, Tracy. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. great to see all this progress. I'm so psyched.
It's coming together slowly but surely.
Yeah, what you're teaming up, it's so exciting. And one of the things I think is really true about Earth Day is it's just gravitas around the world and across the country. It's really a leveler, and it's really engaging of so many people and inspires so much of that. So it's just really great to see the all the SAVE programs. My question has to do with what kind of relationship building you're doing with the UNFCCC and the education leads within that. I'm now working with a group called ECOS, Education Communications and Outreach Stakeholders Community, the UNFCCC, and we're really starting to exponentially make progress there, to the effect that we've heard that education will be the focus of COP26, the 5-year report in. That's just the word on the street right now. We're seeking to find out more about that, but how are you guys connecting with them?
Not as much as we should right now. So I've talked to Frank briefly about this. I would love talking to Miro at an event here in DC. I would love to be closer connected to ECOS and those events and those networks, and seeing what we could do. We're hoping for some announcements at the COP in Chile in December for some international, national level education initiatives around Earth Day and climate education, but hoping to push those conversations forward in the next coming weeks.
Okay, great. Well, I look forward to connecting with you on that as well.
Yeah, so I'd love in our, I think Thursday, we're following up. I'd love to talk more about that and how we can work on that.
Yeah, sounds great. And I thought it'd be good to bring up on the Clean Call, since there are a lot of people here who are also, and Clean and ECOS are very closely partnered as well.
Yeah, no, I'd love to, it's definitely one of the priorities I'd love to be more closely connected with. Absolutely.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Abby.
Great. And just for time, we are at the end of our time here. So I'm going to cut us off for this. If people want to stay on the call and ask Tracy any more questions if she has time, or I'm sure you can email her as well. But just for the purposes of people who do need to leave, I'm going to end it there. So thank you so much, Tracy. We really appreciate you presenting today. And yeah, I'm sure that hopefully this will create more connections that we can follow up on through email.
Yes, please. Thank you, everybody, so much for your time. I know your time is precious. Please email me with any questions. I'm happy to jump on a call with anyone and see how we can all work together. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to working together.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks,
all right.
Tracy.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone, have a great day.
Thank you.